Today, we're supposed to work based on what we have on the book by Deborah Phillips, Longman Preparation Course for the TOEFL test, the paper test version by Deborah Phillips. On page 96, we have the structure and written expression, and we will cover all the skills from now on. Last session we talked about the characteristics of sentence. In previous sessions we talked about sentence. We defined the sentence as a grammatically independent unit of expression. It is made of subject and a verb. It starts in written form. It starts with a capital letter. It ends with a punctuation mark. So these are the characteristics of sentence. And then we talked about the bare bones structure of sentence: subject, verb, and complement or complements, and the complements were optional. Then we classified the sentences either by purpose or by structure. By purpose, we actually classified them in terms of declarative sentence, interrogative sentence, imperative sentence, and exclamatory sentence. Then by structure, the sentences were either simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. We talked about all these issues. Then we talked about the nouns, and we talked about the subject, actually, which is one of the lexical categories. Okay, we talked about the parts of speech, and we learned that in English every word functions one of the 5 different categories. They are either used for expressing meaning, or expressing doing or being, or modifying or connecting, or expressing emotions. And we learned that the subject is a noun. So we talked about the nouns. Then we talked about the noun markers. Then we talked about the place of a noun in a sentence as the subject of the sentence, as the object. When it is an object, it can be the direct object or the object of the verb, or indirect object. It can be the object of the preposition. Again, we talked about the nouns and as subjective complement and objective complements. When they come immediately after the linking verbs, they are subjective complements. When they come immediately after another noun, which is an object, and actually complete the meaning of that noun, in that case it is the objective complement. Then we talked about the positives and the other things. Now let's go to the book and see what are on page 96 of the book. I have already provided you with the copy of the book. You can just open the book, or you can just follow me based on the slides I will show you today. So actually the second section of the TOEFL test is the structure and written expression session. This session consists of 40 questions. Some tests may be longer. Okay, you need to learn these tests because in Iran, for MA and PhD, you have to actually take this test. So this is one of the reasons we are studying this book, and there are many things that we will cover, and we will cover all the upper, intermediate, and advanced grammar. So there are 2 types of questions in structure and written expression session of the TOEFL test. As you see, the name implies that there are 2 parts. The first part is about the structure, and we have 15 questions from question 1 to 15. And this part consists of, as I told you, 15 sentences in which part of the sentence has been replaced with a blank. And each sentence is followed by four choices, and you must choose the answer that completes the sentence in a grammatically correct way. So uh, there is a blank, and there are four choices, and choices by themselves are correct, but one of the choices will complete the sentence and we will have a complete thought, because we know that a sentence is a grammatically independent unit of expression, so it should stand alone as a complete thought. In the second part, actually the written expression part, and they are questions from 16 to 40. So this part consists of 25 sentences and four words or phrases or groups of words have been underlined, and we must choose the underlined word or group of words that is not correct. So they are four underlined or underscored words or phrases, and we have to choose. This is a kind of error detection part. So let's start with the first part, but before going to the first part, we need to learn about the characteristics of sentence. Uh, Sarvnaz, will you please start reading this part?
Yes.
Go on, please.
Um, Characteristics of a sentence. A sentence can be formed by one or more clauses. Can be independent and dependent subordinate clauses. All sentences must have subject and verb. Sentences can be simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. A simple sentence is formed by only one independent clause.
Very good.
I went to the
We talked about all these issues in details. So, as you see, a sentence has only one subject and one verb. You remember the sentence pattern: subject, verb, complements, and complements. One subject and one verb, unless they are compounded. So this is uh, a very important actually message for all of us, because we will answer the questions based on these information. Go on with the example.
I went to the movies yesterday afternoon.
Okay,
Um,
so
should I should I
it is an independent clause. Will you please analyze this
yes.
sentence for the class?
You mean defining the subject and the noun
So
and
let's look at this. Is it a sentence? This way, I will ask you some
um
questions and you
it
please
is a
answer.
sentence.
Yes. How do you know that it's a sentence?
The first word is capitalized and it has a period at the end.
Okay.
It has a subject and a verb. And it, it has a complement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has an independent clause
So it is an
and
independent clause because it can stand alone as a complete thought. And as you see, we have the subject, I, and at the
mhm,
same time the verb. Then we have to the movies yesterday afternoon, so we have complements here. So
mhm.
it can stand alone as a complete thought, and that is why we consider it as a sentence. It is a simple sentence. We talked about the compound sentences and we learned how to make a compound sentence. There is one way here to show how we compound the independent clauses and make a compound sentence. Well, would you please go on?
Yes. A compound sentence is formed by two or more independent clauses connected by coordinate conjunctions. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, fanboys. I went to the movies last night and I had a great time. Should I read the
Excellent.
commentary?
Actually, I went to the movies last night. This is a complete thought. I had a great time. Again, this is another complete thought. So two independent clauses. We can conjoin them with a comma. This comma is a must. Never ever forget it. If you actually miss this comma, the sentence will be a run-on sentence. If you miss the coordinate conjunction, the sentence will be a comma splice. And if you miss both of them, again, this is not acceptable, because in a sentence we have one subject and one verb. So in that case, we will have two subjects and two verbs without any compounding. So we need to use punctuation, a proper punctuation mark, and coordinate conjunction. Are there any other ways to make a compound with these two sentences?
Could we use a semicolon?
Excellent. Instead of comma and, we can use a semicolon. Great. What else?
Um, if if we didn't use a comma and only use the conjunction, would that be grammatically incorrect?
That's true. So um, if the conjunction is a conjunctive adverb, okay, so what do we do there? We need to add it with a comma or semicolon. Can we conjoin them, connect them with a semicolon or a comma? With the conjunctive adverb, like, however, nonetheless, in addition to, plus. What we should do?
I think we should use a comma or a semicolon. I think, and also the adverbial conjunctions.
Very good. Semicolon. We need to put a semicolon there before the conjunctive adverb. If we use a comma and conjunctive adverb in the boundary of the two sentences, this comma is called comma splice. Instead of and, if you put one of the conjunctive adverbs, okay? I went to the movies last night, semicolon, however, I didn't enjoy my time. So here, if you use however, you need to put a semicolon before that. If you put a comma, that comma again is called comma splice. So the comma splice cannot conjoin a conjunctive, two independent clauses with a conjunctive adverb. Let's go to the complex sentence. It is formed by one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Is it true?
Yes.
Okay, so we can have two independent clauses or more independent clauses. Here we have one. So I went to the movies after I finished my homework. So again, it follows the same old rule. We have the subject, we have the verb, we have the first complement, we have the second complement. So as you see, the second complement functions as an adverb. The first one is again another adverb, because the preposition is one of the noun markers and a movie is a noun. So preposition plus the object of the preposition is either an adjective or an adverb. Here it is an adverb. Why? Why it is an adverb?
Why? Because it's referring to a place.
Very good. And it doesn't modify a noun. It post modifies a verb, so it's an adverb. And it refers to a place, and it's an adverb of place. And after that, I finish my homework. Again, this is an adverb of time. So as you see, the adverb of place precedes adverb of time. So this is another adverb. And as you see, the whole clause which is dependent, and this depends on the main clause, because of this connector, because the connector forces the verb and the clause to be dependent, and it depends on the main clause. So this dependent clause actually functions as an adverb of time. So this one is a phrase. We talked about the phrases. Again, this function as an adverb. So you remember we had subject, verb, complement, and complement. But this is not a simple sentence, because by structure we have one independent clause, one subject and one verb, and one subject and one verb here in the dependent clause. You know that dependent clauses, like clauses or independent clauses, actually have their own subject and their own verb. I do apologize, it is very hard to write on the board. I have my own pen. I bought a pen, but it doesn't work here. Well, this is ridiculous. Yeah. Let's go to when I activate here. Let me see, does it work to write? I will try to write something. Again, I have difficulty. So it created a lot of mess. Just forget about it. Let's go to the traditional way of teaching. Well, the other type of sentence is a compound complex. So here we need at least one independent clause and one or more dependent clause. Okay, so here I went to the movies, comma, and I had great time. So this is one independent clause. Then we see a dependent clause which has been embedded to this one. So by nature, this is a complex sentence. Let's move to the characteristics of the clause. We talked about the clauses. The clauses, like sentences, are a group of related words. They contain subject and verb, but they cannot stand alone as a complete thought, because they have a connector, and this connector forces the predicate to depend on actually the main clause. So every clause must have its own subject and its own verb, but the complements are optional. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't have. The clauses are either dependent or independent. When they are dependent, we call them subordinate, because they are under the order of the main clause. Independent clauses have a complete idea and can stand alone as a complete thought, but the dependent clauses complement the independent clause. Okay, so they cannot stand alone. If we have a dependent clause or a subordinate clause in isolation, it will be a sentence fragment, and a sentence fragment is one of the major errors of grammar. Okay, we cannot have a sentence fragment because it's not conveying the message. It cannot stand alone as a complete thought. There are three types of dependent clauses. We talked about them last session: noun clauses, adjectival clauses, and adverbial clauses. And the noun clause should stand as a noun. Okay, so in any position we can use the noun. Again, we can use. Muhammad, will you please mute your mic? Muhammad Mateen. So a noun clause can be the subject of the sentence, it can be the object. If it's the object, it can be the object of the verb, or it can be the object of the preposition. So uh, any place we have a noun, we can just embed a noun clause. So it stands as a noun or a singular third person pronoun it. I understand something. I understand it. Instead of it, I can write how you feel. When you're writing a noun clause in the objective form, so the subject verb pattern is ordinary. We do not invert them. We never say, how do you feel? We say, how you feel. An adjectival clause functions as an adjective and it describes a noun or a pronoun, but they are post modifiers. They come immediately after the noun and they modify the noun. I know the man. Okay, so we want to know more information about this man, so we need to use a clause. So we embed this clause, who works in that office. As you see, the clause has its own subject and its own verb. Who is a connector, and verb is works. But where's the subject? So if you don't see the subject, who should work as the subject at the same time. So the who is the subject and verb at the same time. Who works in the office. Then we have adverbial clauses. Adverbial clause functions as an adverb in the sentence. I know that man because he works with my father. Because he works with my father is the adverb of the reason why I know the man. So it's an adverb. It actually, the adjectives and adverbs are the modifying words in a sentence. So the adverbial clause and adjectival clause can function as a singular adverb or an adjective in the sentence. Here, this adverb tells the reason why we know the person. The reason we know the person. Well, if you look at the book, we on page 98, they are skills, and the first skill is about to be sure the sentence has subject and verb. So actually, we will see some sentences in English have one subject and one verb, and it's very important for all of us to find the subject and verb in these sentences. So we will try to find them. You remember last session we talked about the subject verb agreement. We have to actually find these very important elements in the sentence. In some sentences, it is easy to find the subject and verb, but sometimes it is not easy because they try to set off the subject from the verb and actually embed some intervening elements. So certain structures such as object of the preposition and appositive, a participle, this can be present participle, sometimes an adjectival clause or any intervening elements, parenthetical expressions go between the subject and verb and cause confusion in locating the subject and verb. Okay, so remember the object of the preposition can be mistaken for a subject. So the object of the preposition comes between the subject and the verb and can be mistaken for a subject. So always the verb agrees with the subject. So we should be able to do the following sentences with one subject and one verb. Okay. Uh, Actually, first of all, be sure that the sentence has a subject and a verb, and we have to be careful of the object of the preposition and appositive when you are looking for the subject. This is another important position. Then be careful of the present participles and past participles when you are looking for the verb, because they look like verb. They are verbals. So we should be very careful about these. Let's go with number one and be sure the sentence has a subject and a verb. Let's ask Zainab. Zainab Tariqi. Zainab, will you please unmute your mic? Okay, Zainab. Hania.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Hania. Will you please start reading skill number one?
Skill 1. Be sure the sentence has a subject and a verb. Engineers are needed for work. The
Okay,
boy will be paid movies.
very good. So you see the subject and the verb, so there is no intervening element here, so it sounds very easy. Number two.
Be careful of objects of prepositions. In the past, a woman in politics wasn't common.
Okay,
However, he took
look, in the past, in is a preposition, the is the noun marker, so these two are the noun markers, so the past is the noun. But you remember from our previous lectures, preposition plus the object of the preposition are either adjective or adverb, but it is in the initial position. It cannot be an adjective because adjectives in the prepositional phrases are post modifiers. They come immediately after the noun. Here it is an adverb. An adverb can modify the whole sentence. So in the past, it's an adverb. A is a noun marker, woman is the subject. So never actually take past as the subject because it is the object of the preposition. Woman is singular. Then in politics, in is a preposition, politics is a noun. Preposition plus the noun or some possible modifiers, which we don't have any here, can function either as an adjective or an adverb. Here it tells which woman, so it's an adjective. In politics, here is an adjective. It tells us which woman. A woman in politics wasn't common. So as you see here, we had two prepositional phrases and two adverbs and adjectives are here. The first one is an adverb, the second one is an adjective. So we see both adjective and adverb here. Well, read the last one. For the
for the
fever.
fever, he took aspirin tablets.
For the fever, he took aspirin tablets. So for is a preposition, there is a noun marker, fever is a noun, but this noun is not the subject. It is the object of the preposition. Preposition plus the object of the preposition in initial position is an adverb. Adverb. Why? This is the adverb of purpose. It is the adverb of purpose or reason. Why he took aspirin tablets for the fever.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
You already said that when we use an adverb at first of a sentence, we should use a comma and then
Excellent.
the noun. Why we don't have a comma in here?
Very good. That was the point I was expecting from any of you. Thank you so much, Amir Ali. Well, according to APA, when the number of the words in a prepositional phrase in initial position exceeds 3, we need to set it off. Here we have 3. اگر بیش از 3 کلمه باشه, it is highly recommended to set it off with a comma. Now it is optional. You can have it or you can drop it. I can just set off this prepositional phrase from the rest of the sentence with a comma, or I can exclude them. Okay? Clear? Let me tell you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Let me tell you something. Actually, ETS, Educational Testing Service in United States, is responsible for high-stake tests like TOEFL, GRE, GMAT, SAT, LSAT, TOEFL IBT, actually Young TOEFL. Recently they have Young TOEFL, different versions of the TOEFL. Okay, so they are using their sentences, or actually the patterns the sentences they use in their own tests come from the texts in North American undergraduate courses. They come from the science, mathematics, art, humanities, social sciences, so from different fields of studies. Okay, and different fields of studies are using different styles of writing. In some styles of writing, adverbial phrases in initial position do not need any comma, but the other styles like APA, American Psychological Association, highly recommends to set off the adverbial preposition or adverbial clause or an adverb from the main sentence, because the adverb can modify the whole clause, but it cannot modify the noun. So we need to set it off with a comma. Here, that is the reason why we don't see the comma. Maybe this is coming from a text which is not related to the humanities or social sciences. Okay? This is one reason for not having a comma. But another reason is, if you see actually more than 3 words in initial position and they are making a prepositional phrase, we need to set it off from the rest of the sentence. We have to be careful about the positives. آقای مجتبی قلمبر. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mujtaba, will you please start reading this part?
Yeah. Skill 3. Be careful of appositives. An appositive is a noun or noun phrase which describes another noun or pronoun. It is normally set off by commas.
Very good.
Shall I read those examples?
Actually, appositives can cause confusion in structure session of the TOEFL test, because an appositive can be mistaken for the subject of the sentence. But you remember, in a sentence we have one subject and one verb. You know Tom is a proper noun, so it's a noun, and the noun by nature can function as the subject. So the Tom is the subject because it is the first noun in the declarative sentence. When we see the sentence ends in full stop. So then I know that a is a non-marker. Good as an adjective. Again, adjectives are non-markers. So the mechanic here is a noun. So I have two nouns. The first noun and the second noun. Can I have two nouns at the same time for one subject? No, impossible. Because you remember subject, verb, complement, and complement. This is the bare bones structure of any sentence in English. There are some exceptions. We will talk about them when the verb precedes the subject, when we have inversion. There are some rules we will learn later. Anyway, here Tom is the subject. Remember, we never ever set off the subject from the verb. Okay, but here we have an intervening element. Because an intervening element comes between the subject and the verb and identifies the subject, we call it an appositive. An appositive is a non-group. There is no verb form here. It is not a verb in an appositive. در جمله واره های توصیفی گاهی ما میاییم کوتاهش میکنیم و چون فعلمون فعل بی هست میبینیم که کانکترمون که فاعلمون بوده و فعل بی حذف شدن. آن چیزی که مونده سابجکتیو کامپلمنت ماست و این سابجکتیو کامپلمنت ما گروه اسمیه. هیچ مشخصه از فعل توش نیست. میتونه نقش اپازیتیو داشته باشه و در جمله واره های غیر ضروری میاد چون اپازیتیو غیر ضروری. هر چیزی که غیر ضروری داخل دوتا کاما. So it is surrounded by two commas. So an appositive actually identifies Tom. It gives more information about Tom, and it is a non-group. You don't see any verb form here. That is why we need to set it up with two commas. If we drop one of these commas, the sentence is wrong. Tom is the subject. So we can actually keep it as close as possible to the verb. So an appositive can advance to the initial position. So a good mechanic comma, Tom is fixing a car. Okay, Mujtaba, why mechanic is not the subject and it's still Tom is subject? We learned that the first noun in the sentence should be the subject. So a is a noun marker, good is an adjective, it's a noun marker, so mechanic is a noun. So why not we take it as the subject?
Because I think it's related to those commas.
Excellent. Because this comma shows that if this is the subject, never ever we set off the subject from the verb with one comma. Do you see any comma here? No. In the bare bone structure, you don't see any comma. So here, if you take this as the subject, this comma shows that this is not the real subject. It is an appositive because the real subject is never set off. We never set it off from the verb. So with a comma. So if I put a comma here, In that case, mechanic is the subject, Tom is the appositive. Okay? If we put 2 commas here, actually Tom is surrounded by 2 commas. In that case, Tom is an appositive and mechanic is the subject. Okay, Mujtaba, if we drop this
Yes,
comma
sir.
and this comma, what happens?
I think the sentence is gonna be wrong because we are separating the subject from the verb.
With 2, actually we have 2 subjects for verb. Is it true?
Yes, exactly.
Very good. But sometimes we have an appositive. Imagine now we drop this comma. What happens? Again, we have 2 nouns for 1 subject. Okay, for 1 verb. So this is the first subject, this is the second subject for 1 verb, and there is no any coordinate conjunction to make a compound subject. So if we drop this, again, what happens?
Well, I think, as you said, we are gonna have two subjects for one verb, and the sentence is gonna be grammatically wrong.
Very good. But sometimes that's true. You're quite right. But sometimes we don't see any commas. When there is no comma, it is essential appositive. It means that the meaning of appositive is essential to the sentence. When I say, my brother Reza is a teacher, my brother Reza. If you do not see any comma, it means that I have more than 1 brother. If I say my brother, comma, Reza, comma, then is a doctor, in that case, when there is a comma to set off Reza from the subject and verb, so in that case, it means I have 1 brother, and that brother is Reza. It is non-essential for actually the person who knows him. Okay? If we see sometimes there is no comma and 2 nouns are there, and this noun is short, it is 1 word, in that case we say it is essential appositive. اگر appositive در قالب یک اسم کوتاه قرار بگیره، اون موقع 2 تا کاما رو نداشته باشه، میگیم essential appositive هست. یعنی اینکه حتما و حتما این آدم یه دونه داداش داشته، بس گفتنش ضرورتی نبوده. وقتی که داخل 2 تا کاما میذاره، همون جمله است. یعنی اینکه نشون میده pragmatically تو این دیسکورس ما نشون میده که این بیش از یه دونه داداش داره، میتونه 2 تا 3 تا یا بیشتر داداش داشته باشه. So a good mechanic, comma, Tom, comma, is fixing a car. So this sentence, I mean this third one, tells me mechanic is the subject, Tom is an appositive. When I have 2 commas, this shows that it is non-essential because I have 1 brother, I know 1 mechanic, and that mechanic is Tom. But if I drop these two commas, it shows that I know more than one. I do apologize, I made a mistake. When we drop this, so it is essential. It means that I have one mechanic, and that one mechanic is Tom. If there are commas there, it means that I know a good mechanic among many mechanics, and this mechanic is Tom. It means that there are some other mechanics there. Well, let's go to the next part about expletives. Well, Moshtaba, will you please read this box? An expletive is?
Yes, sir. It and their strategy.
No,
Some sentences or
this
clauses.
box. I mean, an
Oh,
expletive is
the yellow box, right?
yeah, yellow box. I made a mistake.
Yeah. An expletive. Oh, I'm sorry. An expletive is a word or phrase inserted into a sentence that is not needed to express the basic meaning of the sentence.
This
It is
word,
regarded
I'm
as
sorry,
semantic.
this word has two pronunciation. American pronunciation, actually the stress falls on the first syllable, so it is expletives, expletive, okay, expletive. But in British pronunciation, stress falls on the second syllable, expletive, expletive, expletive or expletive. So either way, you pronounce the word correctly. So it is a word or phrase inserted into a sentence that is not needed to express basic meaning of the sentence. Okay? It
It is
is
regarded as semantically null or a placeholder.
It is a dummy filler. فقط میاد اونجا پر کننده جمله است. فاعل اصلی نیست، چون سمنتیکلی به عنوان نحوی هیچ نقشی رو نداره. اوکی؟ در اصل اونجاست که فقط جای فاعل رو بازی بکنه. جای فاعل نباید خالی باشه. همین که گفتیم که subject باید در جمله باشه. So syntactic expletives are words that perform a syntactic role. It means when they come as the subject of the sentence because there is no subject there. Okay? Semantically, there is no subject there. We don't get the meaning of the subject from it and there. Go on, strategy, read the strategy.
Strategy. Some sentences or clauses begin with it or their. Be aware of the constructions that follow these objects. In the structure section, parts of a sentence including it and their may be omitted. A sentence or clause may begin with the words it or their. 1. It is used in three ways. It is used as subject followed by the verb to be, like it was in 1761 that she came to Boston.
Okay,
It plus to be plus that.
Very good. It comes in this pattern. So here, grammatically, it is a subject, but semantically, it doesn't convey any message. It is there to actually fill that place. Okay, semantically, it's a null word. Okay, or a placeholder. It just comes and fills the place of subject because we expect to see the subject before the verb in a declarative sentence. It was in 1761. So adverb of place, preposition plus the noun, so adverb of place. That she came to the Boston. So as you see, a noun clause just comes immediately after that. Then we have it is used as a subject when the information is related to the adjective. If it was important, then we need an infinitive to be free. Or if you want to actually show a time phrase, it took her a few years to learn English. So it plus take plus time phrase, again we need an infinitive. So as you see, it has no meaning here. It merely serves as a dummy subject. از خودش معنایی نداره، فقط اومده جای فاعل خالی اون رو پر بکنه. Let's go with the next one. Gone. There.
2. There. There shows that something or someone exists at a spatial time or place. In this use, the word there follows this construction. There plus to be plus subject. There are many books about Phyllis Wheatley, I suppose. Phyllis Wheatley today. There was a big storm yesterday.
Excellent. And as you see, we have subject verb inverted. So inverted subject and verb, okay? We have inversion in a sentence. The subject goes to the place of verb and a verb comes and precedes the subject. So they are many books. If here, there and nowhere, here, there and nowhere, initiate any clause, okay, at the beginning of this sentence or in the middle of another sentence, any clause. If we have here, there and nowhere, the subject goes after the verb. So there are many books. So we have subject verb agreements. Books is plural, are is plural. There was a big storm. Storm is singular, was is singular. Read this part.
In these clauses, the verb to be and the subject must agree on person. Expletive. An expletive is a word or
Okay,
phrase
we talked
inserted
about this.
into.
This is the same box. So as you see, this is called syntactic expletives. So because it has a grammatical role, it is in the place of subject. In the sentence we have one grammatical subject and one logical subject. There is a grammatical subject, but the logical subject is books, is storm. So this is conveying the message. This is contributing to the meaning. But this is the feeler. This is called dummy or expletive. And it is syntactic expletive because it functions as the subject. But it is not the subject. The subject, the real subject, the logical subject, comes immediately after the verb.